These are the best drugstore makeup products I have ever tried. Welcome back to my Best of Drugstore Beauty series, where I share my top 3 favorite products in every single beauty category. We covered skincare in part 1, body care in part 2, and today for part 3, we are talking all about makeup. Starting off with primer, the first of my 3 favorites is the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. To be totally honest, it took me a while to warm up to this and consider it a true favorite because it's not the most cosmetically elegant to apply. It's a very tacky, stiff gel that doesn't really have any slip or glide to it, so it's something that you do have to kind of put your back into to get it to apply evenly. However, what it lacks in cosmetic elegance is definitely made up for in grip and longevity because it's very grippy and definitely helps to prolong makeup wear for hours and hours. So while the texture is not my absolute favorite to apply, the performance is what really sold me on it and convinced me to give this a top 3 spot. Second is the matte version of it, which is the e.l.f. Power Grip Matte Primer. I have the same complaints about the texture of this that I do the original Power Grip Primer because it's also a stiff, tacky gel that just isn't cosmetically elegant. But if you have oily skin and you feel like most complexion products just end up looking oilier on you as the day goes on to the point where you end up looking greasy, you will love this. I'm not obsessed with how this looks on my skin right after I apply it. I feel like it's just a little bit too flat and matte for my personal preference, but within a couple hours as my oils start to come through, that is when I feel like the magic happens. It starts to look more skin-like. I get all day wear, the same amazing grippy wear that I get with the original primer, but a complete prevention of anything looking greasy on my skin. It's incredible. So this is my go-to when I have a complexion product that I really love the look of initially, but just ends up looking a bit too greasy on me by end of day, because this stops that from happening and just gives me perfect wear. It's truly an oily skin dream. But for my dry skin friends that are looking for an extra glow, may I suggest the L'Oreal Lumi Glow Skin Tint, with a caveat, because I really don't like applying or wearing this by itself. I tried doing that several times, and every time I felt it was just a little too stiff, a little too greasy, and difficult to apply without some sort of streaking or pilling happening. And as a standalone skin tint, I just felt that the finish was too intensely glowy for me. It had that kind of like Tin Man effect. But when I use this a little differently than it was intended and mix it directly into a skin tint or foundation before applying it, it completely transforms and adds the most beautiful soft focus glow to whatever I'm pairing it with. That's a technique I started doing with the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter, and I feel like this gives me the exact same kind of effect. Which is why, even though this is technically marketed as a skin tint, I would highly recommend using this as a glowy primer instead. Moving on to complexion, my first 2 favorites will not come as a surprise to you. First, we have the L'Oreal True Match Nude Hyaluronic Tinted Serum, yet again. Over the past several years, I have tested out so many complexion products, skin tints, tinted moisturizers, tinted sunscreens, foundations, and out of all of those products I've tested at every price point, drugstore, high-end, in between, this continues to be a #1 favorite for me because it's that good. It's a slightly creamy serum that thins out as you apply and blend it, so you're left with a very lightweight feel on the skin. It's pretty much weightless. It has sheer to medium coverage depending on how much you build it, a natural finish, and wears so impressively well for me. Not only does it stay put and continue to just look perfect all day long, but it also doesn't get greasy on me either. It's just absolutely beautiful. But equally as beautiful is the Maybelline Superstay 24-Hour Skin Tint. I haven't used this quite as long as L'Oreal just because it launched a little bit later, but it has also been a favorite of mine for years at this point and is something that I continue to reach for, continue to repurchase, and continue to recommend to this day. Obviously, it's in this video. Texture-wise, this is incredibly similar to L'Oreal, and I would say that the coverage is as well. Originally, I felt like they had the same exact level of coverage, but in continuing to use this for the last couple of years, I actually feel like I can build this up a little bit more and get to like medium/full coverage with it, but definitely not full coverage. But the biggest difference between the 2 is definitely the finish. This one is glowier initially and continues to get glowier for me as the day goes on. So this is the one I'd recommend if you're looking for a bit of a glow boost without it being too intense. And the most recent addition to my favorite drugstore complexion products is the Maybelline Lumi Matte Foundation. The texture of this is very thin and lightweight, but also slippy, so it's super easy to apply and blend. It does have a bit more coverage than the first 2 options. I would say that this one is medium to full coverage. And at first, this has a satin matte finish on me, but it's something that continues to get glowier with wear to the point where at the end of the day, if I am not wearing some sort of mattifying primer under it, I do look a little bit too greasy. Just got hair in my mouth. I do look a little bit too greasy for my personal preference. Again, keep in mind I do have oily skin, obviously, so if you're dry, that's probably not going to happen to you, but I am able to fix that issue by pairing it with something like the e.l.f. Power Grip Matte Primer. So I do have to work with it just a little bit more to get it to work for my skin type, but I have no issue applying a primer first, and then I think it looks really beautiful that way. So this is definitely going to be the one for you if you were looking for the option out of the three that gives you the most coverage, but still has a really beautiful skin-like glow. Moving on to concealer, my first favorite is the concealer I featured in my mega best of drugstore video last summer. It is the Maybelline Superstay Activewear Concealer. This is truly the thinnest concealer that I have ever tried, so it's a very weightless formula to work with and to wear. It gives me medium slash full coverage, so again, not full coverage, but I really like the look of that, especially for concealer. It has a natural to natural matte finish and gives me great all day wear, so something that still is super impressive, but I think it might be being discontinued, so I was like, I'll include it in this video for one last hurrah, and then back to the drawing board and testing out more drugstore concealers. Second is a concealer that I honestly completely forgot about, but I used to be absolutely obsessed with. It is the NYX Bear With Me Serum Concealer. And it's kind of like the opposite of the Maybelline concealer because it's quite creamy, so it's not something that's like as thin and weightless as that. It feels very juicy and moisturizing. Like this is a texture that I would love in an eye cream at night. And the finish of it is very fresh and juicy looking too. There's just something about the way that this melts into my skin that I absolutely love. It just looks really hydrated and glowy, especially before I set it with powder. And in terms of coverage, it's pretty similar to Maybelline, where it's not up to full, like medium slash full at most, but something that I think is so beautiful. And I honestly think I just stopped using because of the fact that it has a pump on it. I definitely find myself reaching for concealers that have a doe foot attached more. It's like the only thing I can think of as to why I stopped using this, because if you watched me several years ago, you will know that this, in addition to this, these two right here, oh my God, the obsession was unbelievable. I truly was like, this is all I'll ever need to use again. And then I forgot about it. So I'm excited that this video helps me to rediscover it. And the final concealer is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Creamy Concealer. The texture of this is kind of like a happy medium between Maybelline and NYX. It's not quite as thin as Maybelline, but it's not quite as creamy as NYX. It's somewhere in between. But it still feels lightweight, and I personally feel like I can get the most coverage from this one out of the three. I can build it from medium up to full, and it has a really nice, fresh, satiny finish. And this was another that I rediscovered. I used to be obsessed with it several years ago, kind of moved on and testing other things, but had to come back to it for this video because I was thinking about all the drugstore concealers I've tested, and similar to what I was saying with skin tints and foundations, there's just nothing else that I've been obsessed with. So until we start getting some new concealer launches that I do fall in love with, this is going to continue to be in my top three. Moving on to powder, another that has been a holy grail of mine for years is the e.l.f. Halo Glow Setting Powder. This sets my makeup with the most beautiful, soft, subtle diffused glow while still keeping my makeup looking perfect all day long. And I don't really understand how this achieves that, because in adding that glow, it doesn't make me look greasy even with wear. Like, it's something that gives me that perfect glow, but like somehow still prevents my oils from pulling through and getting too shiny. But it's definitely not the kind of glow that's like highlightery or shimmery or glittery or anything like that, or I obviously wouldn't love it as somebody with oily skin. It really is just like a healthy skin glow, and it's so beautiful. So this is one of those rare powders that I actually think a lot of different skin types would enjoy. Second is the L'Oreal Infallible Infalliblur. That would kind of be a good name. Infallible Blurfaction Loose Setting Powder. It's the most recent addition to my list of favorite powders and is going to be for you if you want a slightly blurred, truly matte finish that lasts for hours and hours and hours. So in saying that, it's obviously something that you're going to be much more likely to love if you have oily skin, and I would just recommend avoiding this if you're dry, because I can even feel my skin going a little bit tight and dry with this if I don't have the right moisturizer on underneath it. But similar to what I was saying with the e.l.f. Power Grip Matte Primer, if you are somebody that feels like your skin just starts to look greasy at the end of the day, no matter what you have on, this is going to be your best friend. And last is the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder. The finish of this is kind of in between the first two options because it's definitely not glowy at all like e.l.f. is, but it's also not as matte as L'Oreal. And this is the only option out of the three that actually gives me some coverage, which is not something that I really look for in a powder, so I'll just apply a lighter amount of this than I normally would with other powders, but if you are somebody that really likes to get a little bit of a boost of coverage with whatever setting powder that you're using, then this would be the one to go for. Moving on to bronzer, my first favorite is the Milani Cheek Kiss Cream Bronzer. This feels very creamy to the touch, but as you apply and start to blend, it definitely thins out and goes a little bit drier, so I feel like it has that perfect cream to powder experience where it's not something that feels overly wet or heavy or greasy or balmy. It's just really easy to work with because of that, and something that I've been able to use both underneath and on top of powder, and it blends beautifully either way. It has light to medium levels of pigment, so if you're not someone that loves like a super pigmented bronzer, then you'll really enjoy that about this. And it has a satin to satin matte finish, so not something that looks wet or overly dewy on the skin either. And on top of all of those things that I already love about it, it wears impressively well for a cream bronzer, like one of the best I've tried in that sense. So all around, one of the best cream bronzers I've ever tried at any price point, but especially the drugstore. But if you're looking for a cream or liquid option at the drugstore that's a little bit more pigmented, then you will definitely prefer the e.l.f., what are you called? Camo Liquid Bronzer and Contour. This is a little bit less creamy and balmy than Milani, but it maintains a bit more slip as you blend, so something that I also think is extremely easy to work with. And the first time that I put this on, I looked crazy because it's just so pigmented, but if I go for the less is more approach with this one and start with a dot, build from there, it has the perfect level of pigment. It doesn't sheer out and disappear when I set it with powder. It just like maintains that pigment with a nice natural finish and also amazing wear. But if you need a powder option, definitely go for the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Bronzer. This is also a more pigmented option, but in saying that, it's soft, it's blendable, it's buildable, so it doesn't look like heavy makeup. And it has a natural matte finish that I love the look of. I feel like with drugstore bronzers, I often have issues with them either being too glowy, too highlightery, kind of shimmery, or on the flip side, being too dry and powdery, and this is none of those things. It really is perfect. Next up, we have blush, and my first favorite is the Milani Baked Powder Blush in the shade Petal Primavera. This is a soft beige pink with a slightly warm undertone and has the lightest amount of pigment out of my 3 blush options. So if you're someone that doesn't love an intensely pigmented blush, then this is the one that I would go for because it's really easy to just build the level of pigment to your liking without it looking too intense. And it definitely has a little bit of a glow, but it's the most subtle out of these 3, so I wouldn't say that this is something that's like a full-on blush lighter. It has more of like a satiny soft finish. And I personally think that the shade Petal Primavera is slept on. I know that everybody talks about Luminoso, but this one is so gorgeous. I just love like a little bit of a beigey pink blush. I think it's super flattering. Second is the Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush in the shade Shimmery Rose. This is also a warm tone pink, but it's definitely a little bit lighter and less beige than Milani. And I originally fell in love with this shade because it really reminded me of the original NARS liquid blush in the shade Orgasm that I loved, but they discontinued. The texture of this is a little bit softer to the touch than Milani, but it's not too dense or overly powdery, and this also has buildable pigment, but is something that I can build up to be a bit more pigmented than Milani. And the finish is definitely glowier as well. I feel like this is like a pearly blush lighter and it's super pretty. And the third blush is the NYX Buttermelt Blush in the shade Butta Together. This is described as a soft pink, but I would say that it's definitely the most vibrant of the 3. And the undertone is a little bit cooler and pinkier than both Milani and Essence, which I think is super cute. Swatched out, it actually reminds me of cotton candy. The texture is the softest and most densely packed out of all 3 of these, but it's not overly powdery either. And not only is it something that's most vibrant in terms of color, but it also has the most pigment. So if you are looking for the blush that's going to give you the biggest pop of color or the ability to build up to that, then it would definitely be this one. I would also say that this has the most radiant finish, so it is a true blush lighter to me, which you guys know I love. Next up, we have my favorite highlighters, and the first is the L'Oreal Lumi Glass Highlighter Stick. My favorite shade is Glassy Pearl, which is a really beautiful soft champagne gold. And this has a slick, balmy texture that I personally like to just apply with my fingers, so I'll rub my finger on the stick, dab that on my cheeks, and then, oh my god, this is literally like glass. The base is pretty much sheer with a subtle hint of color and this super juicy glow, so it really makes your skin pop. House Labs also launched highlighter sticks recently, and I feel like these are just as good. Second is the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter, which I have in the shade Be My Highlight, but they also have one other deeper shade as well. It's called the Pure Nude Sunlighter instead of the Pure Nude Highlighter. This is one of the best powder highlights I have ever tried. It has the most beautiful, soft, subtle, diffused glow. It really is that like, it's like that candlelight. Oh, goodbye. That candlelight glow instead of something that's really like intense and bold and beaming. It's just stunning. Like honestly thinking about it, if I had to pick one highlighter to use for the rest of my life, it might be this. It's seriously that good. But my most recent favorite is actually from Morphe, which is so weird because I completely stopped using them, even paying attention to them for several years. But now that they have new ownership and are definitely doing things differently, I feel like they've launched several things that have caught my eye. And this was one where I was like, I really want to buy this. It's not technically a highlight, I don't think. It's their Cloud Light Soft Glow Veil. And I have this in the shade Dawn, which is described as a vanilla shade with balancing pink. And to me, this is like the more brightening version of the Essence highlighter because it's still soft and diffused, but it just pops a little bit more. I picked this up on a whim, really not expecting much, but I have not stopped reaching for it since because I just love the way that it melts into my skin. It's not glittery, it's not shimmery, it's just, again, like the slightly brighter version of Essence. Very beautiful. For brows, I only have two favorites because I really struggle with brow products no matter what the price point is. The first is a more recent launch from NYX that has officially become the best drugstore brow pencil I've ever tried. This is their Blade and Shade Nano Brow Mechanical Pencil. And the word nano is why I picked this up because I personally love using brow pencils that are really, really teeny. The one that I'm using right now and have been for the last couple of years is from Kosas. It is their Brow Pop Dual Action Filling Pencil. And the reason why I've loved that so much is not only because it's a perfect shade match for me, but also because the pencil is tiny, so it just allows me to get a more natural look. This one is equally as tiny, if not even teenier, but I will say that it took me a little bit of time to get the hang of it because the shape of it is just different. It's like flat instead of being angled like a traditional pencil. So you kind of just have to adjust your application technique with this a little bit, but then once you do, it's perfectly easy to use and works so amazingly well, gives me that same kind of more natural look 'cause it's so teeny. And this shade, where is it? Hello. Ash Blonde works perfectly for me. The other issue that I have with drugstore pencils, aside from them being too big, is that they often are just way too dark and cool toned for me. So this, oh my God, I'm so excited to have discovered. That sounded weirdly formal. Second is something that I'm so excited to be including in this video. So this is the Maybelline Super Lock Brow Glue, which I have told you guys in previous videos, I absolutely love in terms of the actual product in this packaging. It works so well. It keeps my brows brushed up, locked in place all day long. But I did not want to repurchase it after I last used it because there was something faulty about the packaging where the product was just like coming out too much and it was messy and gross. They seem to have fixed that problem. Like, look at how perfect this looks, and I've used this so many times. So now that the packaging is no longer an issue, this can officially be a favorite. Yay. Moving on to lashes or mascara, my first favorite is still, I know, Maybelline Lash Sensational Full Fan Effect. This was my favorite mascara when I first started my channel, and it still is my favorite mascara now. I just can't find anything that gives me these exact same results. It's so beautiful. I love the length, the volume, the separation, the fanned look, and this is the one out of the three that gives me the boldest lash. So this will be for you if you want the most volume. If you prefer a less bold lash look, then this will be for you. It's the L'Oreal Lash Paradise Big Deal Mascara, and it's the most natural out of these three. It's definitely a bit of a thinner look, so it's not as voluminous as Maybelline, but the length is amazing, and it has kind of like a fluttery effect that I think is beautiful by itself for, again, a more natural look, or paired with something like Maybelline Lash Sensational to get the best of both. And I wanted to pick a tubing mascara for the third option, so I had to go with the e.l.f. Lash Extender Mascara. The final look that this gives me is kind of like an in-between of the first two mascaras because it's not quite as bold and voluminous as Maybelline, but it's not as natural looking as L'Oreal. The length is incredible and is what is most impressive to me about this. I did feature this in my tubing mascara showdown last summer where I included tubing mascaras at all price points, and this was one of the best performing options out of all of them. So good. Next is lip liner, which is a category that I feel like I struggle to find good shades in, or at least like shades that I really love on my skin tone. So what I have settled on here is sharing two shades from my #1 favorite lip liner that I think is very deserving of spots 1 and 2, and then an older favorite of mine for spot number 3. So spots 1 and 2 rightfully go to the Maybelline Lifter Liner. This is just the most insanely amazing lip liner I've tried in the longest time. The first shade I have is Line Leader, which is a rosy pink, and the second shade that I have is Big Lift, which is a deeper, cooler, mauvier shade than Line Leader. Unlike a traditional lip liner, these are not dry or pencil-y, so they're not gonna tug at your lips. They're softer and creamier, but what is most amazing about them is as they start to kind of set, they get tacky, so they do not budge. Like, the wear is seriously so impressive. Maybelline needs to blow this out into like 30 plus shade options because it's that amazing of a formula that it warrants that kind of shade availability. I would buy so many more if they had them. They just don't have a ton of shades that work for me. Thankfully, these two do. which is why they're spots 1 and 2. Spot number 3 goes to the Drugstore lip liner I've loved the longest, which is the ColourPop Lippy Pencil in the shade Oh Snap. This is a cool toned mauve that is like my perfect kind of mauve. I feel like it's a Your Lips But Better color for me. It's also not dry or pencily or going to tug on your lips. It's a little less creamy than Maybelline, but still has great glide. It just doesn't dry down as tacky, so it doesn't have that like budge-proof wear, but it still wears well, so it's something I continue to go back to as a favorite, because when I find a shade like that I feel is my lips but better, I hold on for dear life. The second to last category is lip stains. You guys know that I'm not a huge lipstick kind of gal these days. I am a sucker for a beautiful lip stain, and there are 3 from the Drugstore that I love. The first is the e.l.f. lip stain in the shade Power Mauve, which I don't really think is a mauve. It's more of a rosy pink, but it still is beautiful nonetheless. The texture of this is really nice and comfy. It's like a super slick gel, and it has medium to full pigment with a shiny finish before you blot it, and light to medium pigment with a satiny finish after blotting. So it's really pretty to wear either way, and is one that I get longer wear with. I know that e.l.f. did recently launch some new lip and cheek stains, which I will review in my next new at the Drugstore video, but I hadn't had enough time to play around with it when I was preparing for this video, so this is still the one that makes the cut. Next is the Milani Color Fetish Hydrating Lip Stain, which I am showing in the shade Rose Rising, which is a little bit deeper, cooler, and mauvier than the e.l.f. lip stain. I love, love, love how this feels to apply it. It's a plush gel cream texture. It's super comfortable by itself. It has full pigment with the shiny finish before blotting it, and light to medium pigment with a sheeny finish after blotting. This isn't something that lasts all day long without moving on my lips for me, but I can still get longer wear with this, so all around I think it's an incredible lip stain, especially for the price. And the last lip stain is the NYX Lip IV Hydrating Gloss Serum. I was never able to find a shade in this launch that I was obsessed with. They did launch with a lot of shades, but I felt like a lot of them were pretty similar, where they were like bolder, richer, more saturated colors, lots of reds and berries. And I think I purchased at least 4 shades in this when it launched, and I felt like all of them were just a bit too intense for my skin, especially because I was testing this out in the dead of winter when I was super fair. However, this formula, the way it performs, is super impressive, so I still wanted to include it in my top 3 for those of you that are able to find a shade that you love, because it's really, really good. This is super comfy as well. It also has a gel cream texture, but I would say it's a little bit thick and more like a little more cushy than Milani. Before you blot this, it is intensely pigmented with high shine, so if you're someone that really loves that like lip lacquery kind of look, I think you would love this. After blotting this out, it definitely does sheer out a little bit, but it's still on the more pigmented side for a lip stain for me, which again is why I felt like with the colors it just like didn't quite work. But the finish then transforms into more of a sheeny finish versus that super wet glossy look, which I think is super beautiful as well. I kind of doubt that they'll come out with more shades in this because they launched with so many originally, but if they happen to, I will definitely try them, because I would be so excited to find a shade in this that I love. Otherwise, it still won't be a go-to for me, but again is something that I really felt deserved a spot in the top 3 lip stains at the Drugstore subcategory. And last for this video are Glossy Lips. I'm saying that because one's technically called a balm, 2 are technically called lip glosses, but they do the same thing, make your lips glossy. First is the Physicians Formula Mineral Wear Diamond Gloss, not to be confused with their plumper, the Diamond Gloss, which is the most underrated lip product at the Drugstore, I swear. You know what? I should have had this on the entire time. I forgot to put on gloss. I never forget to do that. This is so good. It's thick, it's cushy, it gives you that wet high shine, and a clear gloss is something that I just cannot live without in my beauty collection, because there's so many lip products that I love that I want to add a glossy finish to, but I don't want to change the color of it all. Like the color's perfect, but I just want a bit more gloss, so in that case it's got to be clear, and if it's from the Drugstore, it's gonna be this. Next is the one that is technically a lip balm, but super, super beautifully glossy. It is the Naturium Phyto Glow Lip Balm. This is just the most beautiful tinted lip balm. It's thick, it's plush, it's cushy, it's slightly tacky. It's just, the feel of it alone is perfect, but then all of the beautiful shades. Depending on the shade that you get, they're like sheer to light washes of color, and they have so many options that I love. My number 1 favorite is Plum, which, shocker, is a gorgeous plummy mauve, but I also really enjoy Camellia, which is a light cool toned pink, and Petal, which is a lighter warm tone pink. They're beautiful, and the ultra glossy finish is as well. I just die for a glossy lip that looks like this. It's perfection. But But if you prefer a gloss that's a little bit lighter, like not quite as thick as Naturium and not overly wet or drippy looking, then I think that you will prefer the Maybelline Lifter glosses. These have a soft, balmy gel texture that feel moderately thick, yet lightweight on the lips. So again, definitely lighter than Naturium and not quite as intense in the shine department, while still having a really beautiful level of gloss. The pigment really depends on the shade that you get. I have 3 shades here that I really love. The first is Gummy Bear, which is a light cool toned pink that's pretty sheer. The second is Bubblegum, which is a mid-toned hot pink that has a little bit more pigment but still leans sheer. And the third is actually quite pigmented. It's the shade Silk, which is a mauve that has a little bit of rose in it. Plus, I just swatched them all in the back of my hand. These have the most delicious, sweet caramely scent. So freaking yummy. Physicians Formula and Naturium don't smell like anything, but God, these delicious. Smells like candy in the best way. I just posted a giant lip oil showdown that includes all the top rated drugstore lip oils. So if you are looking for a glossy lip product that's specifically marketed as a lip oil, check that video out. I'll have it in my description box below, but because I just did that, I'm not gonna cover it here. I need a break from lip oils. So those are my favorite drugstore makeup products in every single category. I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, click on that notification bell and send my channel to a friend. All of those things really support my channel, so thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for watching my videos. I love the freaking heck out of you guys. My next video will be up a week from today, so stay tuned for that, but until then, I hope you have a great rest of your... A great rest of your week. I clearly need to log off.